Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hamster's Hobby Hang. Thank you for your patience. Hello, hello. Hello. Took a blade to some pieces. What did I miss? Probably a long time ago. At some point I probably told this story, but when I was first starting at Dwarven Forge, if you don't know, I was hired for like 4 weeks just to paint bulk for Caverns Deep. KS6, I think? Just to get through the bulk. And then Nate says to me, do you paint like miniatures? Because they were interviewing like art students and stuff. And I was like, that's all I've ever painted. So I did some of the little characters that were in Caverns Deep, the Minotaur and the little rat guy and stuff, and the Blink dogs. And then I did little accessories. All right, stick around, do those. Then the campaign was over, and they're like, well, you're cool. Why don't you just stick around, find something to do? And I just like did random stuff and painted when the campaigns were, when it was time. And now that month has lasted for almost 8 years. Where was he going with this? I don't remember. Oh, yes, the blades to the pieces. But when I was starting, I didn't understand that what I was painting were prototypes. Okay. I thought I was painting what you guys get. So one day, Nate said, hey, Hamster, because I was Hamster right away because they said, we already have a painter named Aaron, mostly joking. And in a panic of new job day, right, I was like, I don't know. Like, my last year of college, they called me Hamster for a short time, and, well, here we are. But Nate said, these little walls don't quite fit. Can you put them on the belt sander? Just to shave like a millimeter off. And I was like, aren't people gonna be upset? Are they gonna be okay with like a sheared off wall? And this wasn't even Dwarvenite either. So I didn't know what I didn't know, and nobody told me. They're just like, hey, awesome, welcome. Why don't you just paint this stuff? And I'm like, okay. I thought it was what you guys got. So I put on like a full hazmat suit and was shaving. That's when I learned it was like, no, we do the campaign for this is for the photos and this is prototype. So when I learned everything all at once. It's kind of like when I learned that Santa wasn't real, My dad was like, we got to get this all out of the way at the same time. Tooth Fairy, Easter Bunny, I don't know, leprechauns on St. Patrick's. I don't know. It's like we're dumping all of it out on the table, okay? That's kind of what this was like. I got the whole truth all at once. Thank goodness. But anyway. Oh, some prison cages. That's kind of fun. I mean, you can get away with just like some rough metal dry brush, right? Yeah, into the deep end of the pool. Well, I mean, honestly, what a relief, right? Because it also is kind of funny. I look back and Nate's like, hey, this stuff looks great. But, we got to pick up the pace like a little bit, right? Because we're just on a tight. And I was like, I know, but people are going to get this stuff. It's like, no, it's for the photos. That's to look good, but like it's like for the images. We just need to build it out with bulk. Oh man, good times. So I was gonna do more, finish out these little frog guys, little fish guys we did last week. I still love these things. They've been sitting on my desk. I've been admiring them. I love how these came out. I'm probably going to change the color on the weapons. I'm fine with this stuff being randomly purple, but I don't want the same here to here just for the separation visually. But these came out really cool. That was some fun, like really simple glazing, right? Do you remember that? Those that were here. Just some kind of chunky, sketchy work, and then hit it with glazes. These are such cool sculpts, too. But as I looked at them, I was like, you know, like, the contrast on, like, the weapons is cool, but I kind of want them to be distinct from the belts and bobs and whatnot. But I'm not doing that tonight, because Nate and I are going to the monthly Warhammer tournament this weekend at our LGS, and I have a unit that's not quite done. It's been sitting like half finished. This is for my Stormcast Eternals army. Oh, nice. I got a bunch of Picorni. Yeah, they should go pretty fast. For the most part. But I know in general, especially on Hobby Hang, well, I just basically do the armor, and then, like, I base coat everything else blue because it's mostly cool colors, just so I'm not painting over yellow, because this whole thing ends up this yellow with the airbrush and stuff. Oh, the whole set? Nice. I gotta order some more paints actually too, because we're running low in the studio. You reminded me. But I know I've sort of been, you know, whining about painting yellow, but I found a way that I like doing it, which mostly with ink over like white, because just if you layer it up from dark is when it's frustrating, because the pigment is like so thin and wonky and finicky. But this is actually, you know, this is pretty much just like the slap chop that's been going around. But the base is red. So what I like about this is, like, there's nothing that's like dark, like black. But you still have good contrast with it. Like the base coat is like something like this. So it's not even like the darkest of dark, it's just like a dark mid-tone. And then super rough, heavy white dry brush. But it still leaves some nice recesses. I tried to do the Zenithal with the airbrush, and I actually didn't even like it any better. I liked it worse. Because it just blasts the recesses on these upper parts. So I do this mostly with brush, except for the yellow. But then the ink is so saturated that, like, man, you get that huge yellow pop with like 1 or 2 passes really quick over the white. And then a cool color theory thing here. When I was first doing the box, this was for a Gen Con, I think? Like 1 Gen Con ago? Not this past August, the previous one. They released the box, doing it really fast. I was gonna hit it with orange for the shadows, right? But we have color theory on our side. So this is actually magenta. Thinned down, going over this is blasted with yellow ink, and then when you hit the yellow with magenta, it like visually mixes, and physically, I guess. I know they've been losing to the Phillies, okay? I've been following them all season, okay? I love those guys. I will wear the hat no matter what, okay? But yeah, like I painted some with an orange, and they look great. They look fine. But there's something, like, if you put them next to each other, I don't have any of the old ones, but with me. But there's something that's more vibrant about, you know. I think visually, like, some of it is pinker and some of it turns more orange, and so there's sort of like a vibration with this effect as opposed to just orange over yellow. Well, I'll tell you, because my partner moved out here, and she loves baseball, but she's from Minnesota, but she, like, didn't really follow the Twins. She just, like, liked watching baseball with family and stuff. And she, like, made it a mission to become a Mets fan. She knows more than, like, the average Mets fan, I bet, because she has done research, YouTube documentaries. She has a vinyl record of when the Mets team recorded a musical album. Okay. And so I started watching more baseball because she would put the games on. And I enjoy watching pretty much all sports. In middle school, like as a kid, I grew up playing everything, right? Until I started theater in high school. Then I didn't play any sports. But before that, I played everything. So I was like, okay, I can have fun watching baseball. But I didn't understand the strategy and like the nature of the game. You know, people say it's slow. Now I understand how to watch baseball. And now I can't get enough. Especially with this team, there's just a lot of characters, a lot of good personalities on the team, so. What the heck is Jolly Olive? Do you know what Jolly Olive is? Do you know what Jolly Olive in regards to the Mets is? No, we don't know what that is. I'm talking about how I became a Mets fan because I'm wearing a Mets hat.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm telling you did it. Yeah. Brewers, okay, the Brewers, here's the thing though, the Brewers are like, I can't become a Brewers fan now. They're like been really good the past couple years. I can't be like fair weather. Also, Wisconsin and Minnesota have like an unspoken rivalry in all things, even though they're really similar. Oh, he's like a content person for baseball? We'll have to look some of that up. But yeah, but I do normally try to keep up with the Vikings in football season, so I'll go back to Minnesota for that. Not back to, but you know what I mean. But I have my Army case here for Stormcast, and I forget if I've been able to show you some finished ones, or if I've just talked about it, or like pulled up Instagram or something, but I try to do like a cloud thing. All of this came out of like what can be so fast but still cool. So I was like, I don't have time to do basic because the starter box arrived like the week that they were leaving for Gen Con, and Nate was like, this sounds crazy, but what if we painted this for Gen Con? And by we, he meant me. Chris painted the Skaven part, actually. But I was like, okay, they come from the sky. I'm just gonna do a cloud effect on the bases and just super glue teddy bear stuffing to the bases and like airbrush it, and it will be really fast. So I'm weirdly like sitting over a garbage can with a scissors, like trimming this. But at least I'm not like doing like the texture paste and waiting it to dry and whatnot, right? But it turned out super cool, I think. So like there could be a lot more detail on like the purple parts, but once I did the flashy armor, the flashy base, the flashy weapons, I was just like, all right, we just gotta get this like covered. I like that it's darker and cooler than the armor to contrast, but other than that, there's like barely highlights. In fact, this one has like the least amount of highlights. But yeah, the purple will have like some highlights. But otherwise, just call it good there. Basically, I left like the purple for like the least important parts that want to be separated, but like you're hopefully looking at these things and oohing and awing is my goal. I'm just like, distract him, shiny, look over here. And then the purple's just like there to be separate. Looks like I must have done a satin varnish on this too, because they're going on the subway. But my favorite so far has been this guy. Oh, is that all I can do? Let's see. This bird. And this actually was really similar to the armor, where I just did like a black base, and I dry brushed it with the black with like bunker blue from Starforge. It's the new Picorni paint. And then otherwise I just did like the heavy white dry brush, like the armor, and then sprayed it with inks and stuff. And the starry bits are just like a brush, like a crappy brush with wet white paint in it, and then just spritzing air only through the airbrush past it. So that turned out pretty cool. And anytime there's a flame on this army, I just do it like pink to purple, just, I don't know, to contrast. But he had a big sculpted base too, so it's a shame that it's hidden, but I do kind of think it's fun to like go nuts on the cloudy stuff. But anyway, I like that the scheme has developed where like this took like 2 or 3 hours maybe to do this big monster, so that's what's been fun about it, is as a gaming army, it's not being too attached to the nitty-gritty little bits and bobs. Just make it flashy, make it fast, and so I can get new options on the table quickly. I've kind of learned that's what I need to do for gaming armies, because if I want to paint it like too hard, I'll just get frustrated that I can't play with what I want, and I'll get frustrated that I can't paint it fast enough. So it's like, okay, just accept a certain level, you know, because it's still cool. But yeah, the prosecutors, the winged guys, just came out awesome. These were in the first box, so this was like when the scheme really came alive. Oh, not that guy. Oh, these are cool too. These were pretty fast. These are just like the endless spells. Once again, just like a heavy white dry brush and inks mostly. Turned out pretty cool. And these are like universal spells, so I didn't want them to be based specifically, so I kind of just did like a weird magically base. But this is cool stuff that I like a lot. It's just medium, like gel medium that you can put in the paint. And if you can imagine, if you look at the result, I often will use it if I want a water effect, like a ripply water. And then you can just like dry brush it white, so you can paint it like blue green, you know, watercolor, and then do just the transparent medium to make the lips, and then hit it with a little highlight. It looks really cool. Especially you can get like a glossy one too, so it will look really wet on there. This is just matte because I figured I could paint it with gloss on the top if I wanted to, but yeah, I like how that turned out. But yeah, what I love about this, especially the armor, is like there's no highlighting step. There's no like hitting edges or anything. It just kind of starts bright, and I salt to taste with the shadow step. And I basically will just, if it's not contrasty enough, I'll just hit a corner of shadow harder. But there's no like edge highlighting, because that just takes forever. So the only, like, the highest highlights are what the ink looks like bare, which is actually like a really less golden yellow. But then you just get a mist, like some of the magenta and orange stuff is really heavy, but overall it does get a general mist, except for like the very upward facing stuff. Yeah, it's just practice, honestly. Like, this is designed to not be, like, to technically execute, it's not difficult. It's just, like, getting used to used to the execution of it. And like, my job is designing schemes, right? So when I looked at these and I was like, they got to be fast. How can I have the most impact in each step? You know, that's what comes from practicing that type of design. But you can get the same thing from painting armies and warbands, you know? It's mostly just like, what is the most impactful thing? And spend your most time there. So I did the armor and the weapons. And you can see, like, very few details are actually painted. Because I'm like, I don't think that's going to even have the impact, you know? Like the little medals and stuff. A lot of people pick those out. It's like, I'm just going to skip them. Because I always tell myself, you can always go back and add to it. And you know what? I pretty much never do. Okay, sure. Well, I'm not sure if it would entirely help, you know, in that circumstance. But what I'll say is I don't even have the steadiest hands. But the most important thing is to steady your hands with strategy. It's just points of contact. So I have my forearms on the table, the edge of the table. I have my wrists together, just holding the brush. I'll even put a finger together or on the base or something. Mostly I'll do it like this. And then this is what gives me the control when I need to be precise, right? So I have one, 2, 3, and then I have this nice. But also it's the steps. Like, again, skipping the highlight step, because any step that requires precision is what's going to take the most time, I think. So I'm like, how can I get away with not doing that? So that's why I do a really contrasty, heavy slap chop dry brush and blast it with ink and just push the shadow, because it's just a spritz. Or even if you're just like doing it with glazes with the brush, it's still not a precise like pen writing type highlight. You know what I mean? I avoid that with all my armies, and I think they look awesome. So it's just, how can you get that same pop, which here was just with heavy dry brush. And honestly, sometimes if you kind of mess it up and you don't get that recess in just my red and white step, or black and white, or brown and white, just base coat it again and redo it until you can see that separation, and then you can do whatever you want with it. But yeah, very, very little. I mean, if I'm doing like display minis, I'll do highlights, but like even these here, if you watch me on Hobby Hang, right? Like this is nice highlights, but it's so sketchy and rough. It's still just like using angles, like letting the sculpt grab it. This is another thing too. So you have your points of contact. I avoid at all costs, unless I really have to, like what I think of as like the pen approach, where you're almost writing like this, right? I just use perpendicular angles, even down to the tip of the brush, right? So on like this weapon, on this highlight, I'm just like that, tap. Light pressure is the key for a highlight like that. But if you look, can see it's still using a perpendicular angle. That's what you know, we want to use the sculpt to our advantage. Otherwise, we would just paint on the canvas, right? But anyway, yeah, these are the Stormcast Eternals for Warhammer. These are, I forget, it's a small company. I forget. I bought them like 5 years ago, and I'm just now painting them. Is this Counterblast the game? I forget. Yeah, I mean, gloss is like good for protection, but I don't mind a satin Phoenix. Just because, you know why? It's like, when we're painting, this is like blasted under a painting lamp, right? But when you go to your local game store, we're talking like overhead lighting and like low poor lighting a lot of cases, right? So the satin kind of like lets you cheat some extra flash and flare with whatever light is in the room. You know, matte will really get, like, you can see the painterly touches really clearly, but sometimes they vanish in low gaming lighting anyway. So for gaming, I like to do satin, which is kind of a new development for me. I used to go all matte all the time. But for these, I'm probably going to start with, like, the weapons, all the blue stuff. And I'm not even on the wet palette tonight. I just have a dry palette, which you should clean, but I don't. It just dries into a nasty mountain until I have to toss it. It's just practice. It's just time. It's just getting used to the tools you have. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Warhammer is not cheap. Thankfully, I kind of had the Stormcast army on accident. I mean, not really on accident. But, like, they're in every launch box, right? Like, every launch box, they're the poster boy faction. They're going to be in every launch the edition box. Before I ever played, I bought, like, 2 copies of the 2nd and 3rd edition launch boxes just because, like, oh, it's awesome. It's a pretty good price for what you get, you know? And so I was able to just be like, oh, well, what if I actually built and painted them? You know what? I finally did quit Magic. Magic was actually my main hobby for like 15 years. And I didn't go super, like, I would do like every FNM. I would play standard. I got really into modern. And I would do a couple like bigger qualifiers and stuff, but I was never doing like the national like travel for a tournament thing. But I did play every week at the shop. And once I started Warhammer, I had to pick. I have a lot of other hobbies too. I do like fishing. I was doing like tournament paintball for a while. I was like, I can't do every single one of these. If there's an expensive hobby out there, I've probably tried it. Yeah, 11K. Yeah, I tell you, that's the thing too. Is like, man, you gotta kind of go all or nothing selling the collection, right? Because I sold my collection multiple times, and it's kind of like, if I had all that stuff, maybe I would stay in the game. But every time my interest would wane, I would kind of sell most of it off. And then, not every time, but like at a certain point, post college, I sold it a couple times, got back into the game, sold it, and I was like, I can't keep doing this cycle. That's terrible. But like when I first got the original fetch lands in the Zendikar printing, the first ones that I got was 8 of them in like a vampire aggro deck I bought on eBay for a few $100. So the fetch lands were going for like $10 a piece at the time. So when I sold those off like 10 years later, and then I wanted to get back into modern and stuff after that, it's like, well, okay, the mana base alone is hundreds of dollars. Yeah. And I'll tell you what too, when I moved to New York, so around like that 2016, 2017 time, I would do some pre-releases. And you know what? When they went back to Ravnica, I was doing a lot of drafting because that's always a fun set to draft when they go back to Ravnica. The color pairings and everything, right? And I did that pretty seriously. Like every Friday I was doing those drafts. But for the past few years, man, yeah, haven't even been interested with the full IP stuff going on. I know this is controversial, and I want everyone who enjoys that to play it. I just really loved the world of Magic, and so even with IPs that I like Warhammer and Lord of the Rings, it's like, yeah, but I don't want to see familiar characters from other stuff like across the table. I like the characters in Magic, so I don't know. I kind of like lost. I didn't realize how much I was attached to that until it was kind of broken. Especially when they're like, oh, it's not going to be legal in all formats, and then they're like, well, it made a lot of money, so actually it is. So I just kind of lost my love for like keeping up with the game and being like in sort of that culture in that cycle of the game, I was like, oh, you completely lost me, actually. So I would probably perk up again if they did a Ravnica set or like another really interesting set, because I drafted the Fairy Tale set that was kind of after that, because there's some interesting stuff. You know, even the D&D crossover is like, okay, I like D&D, and this is still like a fun gameplay thing. I'm still suspicious of like Hasbro just crossing over to crossover, but the dungeons are cool, and playing Ravnica in an RPG would be sick. Okay, but then once they really opened the floodgates, I was like, no. Highlander card game? What is that? And, I mean, Commander is still fun. I don't really have a group that regularly plays. I think if I had friends that play, that would still be a lot of fun on like a weekend, you know, get snacks and stuff and play Commander. I would definitely do that, but I don't know. I was thinking about giving all the stuff I have lying around to my cousin who plays Commander regularly, so we'll see. But I remember when I was like hardcore modern player, which again was still just mostly F and M's. I was like, Commander? Nah, I don't got time for that. It's casual. Even though I know there's like competitive Commander now too. But then in Khans of Tarkir, I saw Sidisi the Brood Tyrant, which is like a graveyard commander where like when a creature goes to the grave, you get tokens. And so, you know, you're milling yourself, and using the graveyard as a resource has always been really cool to me. And I was like, oh, okay, now I'm into Commander because of that card. And I love it now too because it's not the best graveyard commander anymore, but I will be loyal to it until I die. If and when I ever play Commander, it's like, why don't you just play this like same color identity like graveyard commander? It's like, nope, Sidisi is the one. Try home theater? Yeah, I can't even imagine that. I remember my girlfriend in high school, her dad started in like alpha, right? Like but way beginning, and he sold his collection to pay to buy his first house. I will say, you know, when I was a kid, I got into Yu-Gi-Oh! Briefly. I bought Pokemon cards. I didn't even know how to play, I don't think. I was just playing the Game Boy game, so I knew the Pokemon. I got into Yu-Gi-Oh! A little bit at school. But then as soon as I found Magic, I was like, oh yeah, this is it. But when Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel came out, I did go kind of hard on that. And I was like, oh, it's just every deck is a combo deck. That's interesting. That's kind of like someone who's matured as a Magic player. It's like, okay, what's some like wacky combo stuff I could do? I kind of dabbled in that, and then I saw Yu-Gi-Oh! I was like, oh wait a minute, this is just all of that everywhere. So that was fun for a while, but then I thought, oh, maybe I'll get into like the local scene in person and paper, and then I was like, it's too much work. I'm already wanting to play Warhammer and stuff. Which I was playing a lot of Magic because I thought I would like never be able to do Warhammer again because I was living in New York and stuff. And then I got Dwarven Forge gig. So I was like, oh, now I'm thinking about gaming all the time. So anyway, rest is history. I've never gotten into One Piece, not for any reason. I just never, because of, again, every hobby under the sun. I would have probably loved comics, manga, anime. I just never opened that door for myself, I guess. So, you know, I wasn't familiar with One Piece, but I recently saw some of the mechanics for the One Piece card game. It's pretty sick. There's some cool stuff. Oh yeah, I guess if you're like used to the, yeah, if you've been hardcore RPG, D&D player, and then Magic, you're like, okay, but why would I have just like a hand of 7 options when I usually have like a whole menu of options? That's what actually is interesting with Warhammer to me is it's almost, in a way, it's like you built a deck, but you have all of your resources at once. And it's a matter of like, how do you manage all of that and don't let them dwindle, but you're chipping away at your... So it's still similar to Magic in the sense that like you need to create a board state where you're at an advantage, but you have your entire pool literally on the table. Everything's in the open. Your opponent sees it. You have it, you're full gas right off the bat. And then it's a matter of like, how does the train end up going? But I guess I've never played like really crunchy D&D just with the groups I had and the style of DM. It's always been like pretty loose. I'm trying to think. Like for me, because I didn't play a ton of Warhammer, I just like painted a bunch of models. But I played a lot of Magic, so going from Magic to D&D and having everything at once available to you, it's like, okay, hold on, wait a minute. You don't want to miss anything either, right? But now I actually didn't play a lot of D&D until I got Dwarven Forge. I played like a couple times with some friends, and it was fun. But I didn't really get a sense of it until now. I've been playing in a game for like 7 years. Alright, so we're talking Highlander. You had an Immortal. Your deck was filled with allies, props, weapons, attacks, and blocks. Oh, we're on a 3x3 grid. And there's like orthogonal stuff. Oh, that's cool. If you died if your health went to 0, but you could come back to play in the tournament. Unless you're beheaded. That's cool. That's really cool. I can't believe this just occurred to me, but at Adepticon, I bought into Malediction. Have you heard of this? It's by Loot Studios, the 3D print miniatures company. Yeah, there can be only one, exactly. And it literally feels like skirmish wargame plus Magic the Gathering in the best way. When I was skeptical at first, where I was like, how are you going to make this feel like it should just be either a skirmish game or a card game? But the way that it's just like, you basically play spells from when you summon a creature, you put a model on the battlefield. And it has abilities, but each time you activate a character, it can cast a spell, and they often have ranges and stuff. And it really scratches both itches. And there's like limited factions. There's like 4 factions, so you can just get every card. It's kind of more like a living card game. You're not buying packs and stuff. And I'll tell you what, and it comes before you print it, because they're not selling physical. I was like, are you gonna do physical? And they're like, well, we're a 3D print company, so we want people to print them. But the starter boxes do come with cardboard standees, so you can play right away at least before you print stuff. And I don't even own a 3D printer. Like, we have one at work, but it's always queued up with Dwarven Forge stuff. So I basically was set on playing with this cardboard. And it was so fun. It was the games take like 30, 45 minutes. Even when we were learning, and we played like 6 games in a row. We couldn't stop. It was just me and this one friend from the Warhammer scene. It was fabulous. And what's cool is there's kind of like a mini game at the beginning. Basically, the terrain setup is part of the game, where first of all, your terrain that you pick, like they release the terrain with a faction, but any faction can take any of the 4 terrain sets. And they basically give you an enchantment. Like, your terrain has a specific effect. Maybe if an enemy starts their activation on it, they're going to be damaged. Or maybe if you start on your terrain, you're going to move faster. Or maybe you're obscured, you can't be seen. But you have a pool of terrain pieces, and you have to pick a pool of like 5, I think it is. Like 1 large, 2 medium, 2 small. Or 1... Yeah, 2 small. and you alternate placing the terrain, but it has to be so far away from each other each time. So you're kind of like almost screening out their terrain, their available terrain options by where you place yours, and you're also, of course, trying to place yours for your strategy. And so there's kind of this mini game of like, I'm trying to like change where you can even place terrain before the game even starts. So that's really cool. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Oh, and how you get objectives is by literally capturing a husk, they call it. It's like a little marker. But then there's a pool of items of like, you can pick from the, you're going to like discover an item, and you can pick from a pool of like 4 that are like legendary items. So then you're holding on to this legendary item, you're being a badass with it, right? But then if that model is slain, the objective's back on the table. And that artifact is gone, but it's now the hub for combat to claim it, and then you'll pull another artifact if you claim that one. And basically victory points come from slaying the mana cost basically of a model, or the husk is 10. And so if and your leader, your commander basically is also 10. So imagine if your commander's badass, it wants to grab a husk, grab an artifact. Sure, that's a super lethal model now, but it's worth 20 victory points. 20. When a little minion costs like 2 if you kill it. So anyway, I'm rambling now, but there's just a lot of play to that game, and it's been a lot of fun to have something new that scratches familiar itches, you know? Playing since 1982. 37 years playing D&D, that's awesome. Yeah, definitely some area denial. And just fast, too. Like, the board... Well, what's fun is they have different board sizes where they're like, use X amount of terrain features on a 2x2. The standard that they say is like 2.5, 2.5. So it's a pretty small board. So there's less of like that early game of like, nothing's really happening yet until like a couple turns in. You can... Some models can just fly across the board. I'm trying to think. The first time I played was in high school. And I love the guy that ran it. But it was a group of all new players, and I don't think he had ever been able to run a game, and he had a custom world and custom setting. So, of course, he's super pumped. And he kind of like drops a buttload of stuff on us at once when we're brand new. And it kind of was overwhelming, and it's like, it was a really long session of like, all right, we're going to play like all day, and we're going to do so much stuff, it's going to be cool. And so I was kind of like, man, I'm just kind of like exhausted, even though the idea of this is cool. And I don't blame the guy at all. We were kids, right? Like, of course you're going to be excited. But then when I had a DM like really kind of like help me, guide me into playing, then I was like, oh, I get it now. So that was in college, and it's fun too because like I was in theater school, so the people I was playing with were super into like the role play and acting out and stuff, so it was a lot of fun. And that's kind of the game now. There's a lot of performers and just people who played a long time, and our group just has a chemistry because we've played for a long time. And we did just start a new thing with some new people too, so now there's like that new blood that's coming in that's excited. So, and my DM is just freaking awesome, like doing the music soundtracks and stuff and handouts and everything. Yeah, I only played like 3.5 and 5e. I mean, since then I've played, you know, like I played some Call of Cthulhu. I've actually dabbled in some solo Morkborg. Um, I briefly played the Warhammer game, the Blood and Glory or something. Not like the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, the 40k one briefly. I played like one of the Star Wars games. I think it was actually like the old. Wasn't there like a Wizards of the Coast Star Wars game? Morkborg is fun. There's a ton of cool like third-party games that come out for it. I have one that's called Castaway, and you start as like you wake up on a deserted island with nothing, and it's kind of like a survival game. You have to like find any materials for survival. Do you even have a weapon of any kind? You just need to find shelter and not die. Pirate Borg is a great book. I've only glanced through the book, but man, is that full of flavor. What else have I played? I played Monster of the Week, which is fun if you're into like a serial kind of procedural Monster of the Week, a la Supernatural or something. Oh, my D&D group played a superhero game. It's this old, I don't think it's produced anymore, book called Icons. But the hook that the DM came up with was so cool. Where like we're kind of like the Cub Scouts of the Avengers. We're like the new team. Like we're a bunch of teenagers like with heroes in training, and like there's like the actual movie poster heroes, and one of them gets killed. And so they're like, we have to like deal with stuff. Can you like help us around the base and stuff? And it's like, yeah, but we also have to find the killer of this hero. It's just like chaos for the Avengers. So like the B team kind of has to, and so it was a superhero murder mystery. And my character was actually like each as part of our, this is totally custom from the DM. As part of our character creation, we had to pick like which of the higher up heroes was like our mentor or our favorite, and the reason we like wanted to get into the. And I had a thing where mine was my dad, so I'm actually not as excited. I'm like, I guess I'll do it. But I'm not my dad though. I'm like an angsty teen, and what's cool is he didn't even have powers. He was just like a really good DIY like engineer, and he had a YouTube channel like, yeah, do you want to make like your own capacitor or whatever? Here you go. And he was just like a dork. And I was like, oh, that's not me, but I don't want people to think I just got picked because of my dad. I'm like smart too. And so I'm like a tech hacker. So I've kind of like, he does like the analog tech, and I'm like the new age. But what we didn't know until like whenever it happened, and this is sort of in the back of my mind as my backstory, is I did actually have a latent power. And so it's like, oh son, holy smokes, we never knew. Anyway, oh, and I did a one-off of the Cyberpunk RPG, which is cool. Yeah, puberty as hell. That was basically my arc. But then it was like coming times like, yeah, I guess you are pretty cool, Dad, and thanks for loving me and stuff. You know, like that kind of teen movie resolution. He's like, you're really coming into your own. All right, maybe we'll even paint. Just maybe we'll even paint. Led to a heist. I love it. I'm in. Underwater research base. I'm in. Mind control tech. I'm in. Holy smokes. And there's also an elder god. To become sharks with laser beams. This game sounds incredible. Absolutely incredible. I usually want to go pretty heavy on the step. Like, I'll leave some dark areas, but I'd rather it be, like, fantastically bright. Like, it's kind of following my non-metallic stuff in a way, but I'd rather it be flashy. And if I want more shadow, I'll just do it at the end, kind of the last step. Because I still want this to be really fast. I mean, like I said, the weapons probably take the most time, but so I'm not going to be flying through this, but a lot of times on this I'll just kind of follow where the roughness goes for the, like, especially the highlighted areas. It's like, oh, well, I got a bunch of paint there, so I'll do that side as the shiny part. You know, I'm not really, like, thinking super hard about it. I just want to keep progressing. I honestly think almost nothing is better than pulled pork. Are we still talking about a game? Or literal pulled pork? Because I agree. Pulled pork's one of my favorite things to eat ever. If I see a pulled pork sandwich on the menu, I'll almost always order it. Forgot about this swirly. I don't know if I brought home my fluorescent stuff here. I got plenty of paint, so we can do some of that. But fancy pork, holy gosh. That sounds delicious. Extra points to take disadvantages sounds really fun. Curiosity and hates water. That's awesome. Before I forget, gotta do their little tiny short sword sheaths, which are always annoying because I always forget them, and I was like, I don't even need these here. Their main weapons are out. Alright, that one's hidden under his cape. Oh, this one's right on the front of his bod. Alright, so now I got the opposite of what I talked about last week, which is this transparent mixing white. Normally white is very opaque, which is one of its valuable properties. This they just make thin with medium, so when you mix it into a paint, it doesn't blast it into oblivion bright. You can, you know, do a little more subtle mixing because it's transparent, so its impact will be different. We're going to do the opposite. Heavy body white. Just your good old white paint, but it's really thick. So this will, in fact, like leave physical, you know, it's not going to be a smooth layer where they say like thin your paints to thin coats style. But it will be fast coverage. You know, it's not so chunky that it looks terrible. Like I have used this across the whole army. It's still paint. But there will be artifacts here. But I use it for the coverage. So you can tell even, this is still an art store, an art brand, but it's formulated a little more like hobby paints. So this is the heavy and this is kind of more regular hobby style paint. That's like, that looks like. And this isn't even full opacity. It always surprises me. Like, I think I'm at the brightest step that I'm gonna be at, and then I do one more pass, and I'm like, oh, that's actually looks even brighter, looks even whiter because of the layering effect. So I'm still going pretty heavy here because I want some scratchy little bits. Like, I need white on a lot of this for it to look really as bright as I want it to. And sort of starry and flashy is the idea. All of this is like sky colors, so it's like sunset, golden, orange, purple, and then this is like sky blue. But anyway, this first pass of white isn't even like my brightest. You know, the paint is as bright as it will be. But we're just gonna, our final pass will be the most like specific application as far as area, where it's gonna layer on top. Like right here will probably be one where we'll make this even more opaque than the rest of this. So that will be our actual highlight. But for now, I'm just going from that really dark blue to something bright. So I have like that middle of the road teal. And then this is just all over, hitting edges. You know, again, I'm not going to sit there and edge highlight. But I'm going to sort of be scratchy and make sure it hits most of the edges. Just by tapping it along the piece. And now that I've had that first lighter teal layer, I have some idea of the map of like the highlights. So I just noticed there wasn't a ton of white where I saw a lot of teal, so I'm gonna add that. I'm starting to be a little more conscious as I go here, but I'm just saving precision until the very last moment. Not even this step. I have some idea right now, but I'm kind of just following the map that was sort of subliminally created by the previous step. And sometimes I even make a mistake, and that's why my last step fixes that. It adds something that I want in the look, but I can also use it. You'll see what I mean. I can also use it to fix mistakes. But that's why it's a good hybrid step of like, it is part of the final look that I would do anyway. Like, that's also another time saver, is anytime you can avoid stopping what you're doing to fix something, it's like, try to do it in a future step, because you're gonna keep covering paint with paint. So the final step is a fixing step, and the final touch sort of the unifying step. And yeah, this army really did change the way I paint armies with this scheme. And it kind of started right before that, where I speed painted an army of the dead ghosts for, like right here, this did just white on both sides, so I'll use the final step to kind of add something on one side or another to make sure it's not just a brick of white. But I'm not going to do that now. I'm going to keep going. I did an army of the dead ghost scheme for Middle-earth game, and it was just white prime and 2 colors. That's it. Full white prime blasted with a greenish thinned out ink fluorescent, similar to this, shadows with a bluish ink. And I brought it to the store. People were like, holy smokes, forgot the teal here, holy smokes, that looks incredible. And I'm like, what? Thank you. But it was such a low effort scheme that I was like, okay, I gotta clock this. I gotta pay attention to this. That's when I go back to what makes it so impactful. So when I went to this scheme, I was like, it is another bright scheme, which, you know, how will this translate to a dark scheme is my next experiment. I have some ideas. I'm gonna do Slaves to Darkness Chaos Army. But so it's kind of breaking it down, like, okay, what was the impact? Literally just having it bright flashy was one strategy, and almost a distraction from the fact that they're not fully painted and detailed. And it still got oohs and ahs. So it's not like, oh, I need that every time, but it's like, oh, that's interesting. Like, I didn't expect that reaction. So that's kind of where this scheme, the philosophy of the scheme began. So here I almost did my highlight like on this side, but I see my map. I'm like, oh, it looks like there's actually some teal up here, so I'm going to swap that. So I am sort of following my past step here. And especially on like undersides like this, it's like, all right, just hit it. It's gonna be barely visible. But hopefully you can see I'm not being precise at all. I'm being very rough. This is even rougher than usual. I'm just going to leave it for that final step. Just kind of just a brick of white now. But hey, I've got a little highlight here, a little highlight here. I'm calling it good. I will break my rule a little bit. Sometimes you do need to go back, but the point is to minimize it. So I don't want to do straight. You know what? Actually, I have done this. You know what? I didn't even do the teal. Guess what? We're just going to do straight white on top of this dark blue. And we will use the fixing step. And it will look just fine. Especially on this. This is like the secondary little detail. So we got this angle. Do it real fast. Again, a little heavy-handed. We'll fix it later. So now, I'm literally going to do the same thing again. Just in a smaller area. And, if I really need to, again, fix or add white areas I need. But this isn't just a second pass of the same step. It's actually picking the highlight areas and making it brighter on those parts just by doing an extra layer for opacity there. But it's the technical execution is pretty much the same. It's just picking where you want your brightest spots of all time to be, and the previous layer of white will support that to give it the oomph. You know, so now again, following the map. So it's kind of brightest right here. I'm not following rules of highlighting, I'm just like creating a gradient. I almost changed the gradient here because I'm like, well, we can do like an opposite. So I'll do this corner, bam, call it done. See, I kind of have that picked out. Have some teal on the end here. I'm gonna make that opaque. This is the underside. I'm less worried, but I still want to kind of do it. And then that's done. Till the last step. Alright. Here's our map. Make sure that highlight is clear. That highlight is clear. Add a little contrasty bit here where this is really dark on the bottom edge. That's really bright. And sort of follow the map quickly on the back side, but it's the underside, so we'll do it fast. So hopefully you can see my main goal with the army scheme and army painting is keeping up the momentum and the progress. Because when you have to paint multiple models like this, you just want to prevent the burnout, you know? I added a touch there in the really dark, just a touch for just a random splotch. Followed the map on either side here. Followed the map. There's a little bit of a map right here. Just gonna do that quick. Got a little messy on the end. We can fix that later. We'll see. And that's done. Moving on. I hope this is interesting. Sometimes I just start chatting and thinking out loud. Got really heavy-handed. Again, we're going to move on. We can always adjust it with the last step by design. So our map, we're making basically no new decisions. We're just following what we have. You see that? We already have a map on this blade. Just follow it. I'm glad Hobby Hand keeps up momentum. That's kind of my goal, is to like, hey, this is my hobby time I'm using for hobby time. Hopefully you can use it for hobby time. We can do it together so that we can all make progress. Alright, so now the last thing, still really imprecise. but you are still like kind of making some fun decisions, but it's not technically like physically precise. And it's just a little bit of a wash or glaze with some fluorescent blue. You don't have to use fluorescent. Here's the thing, in general, even for like lighting and stuff, I don't necessarily default to fluorescence. But here's why I like fluorescence. And I sort of talked about this before. It's the crappy game room lighting. You know what I mean? When you're in low light, what fluorescent like literally does is absorb more light than usual and reflect it back. So what fluorescent, you don't necessarily need the fluorescent to make something look really bright. You can do that with regular paints in a really pleasing way even. But what fluorescents do is like in a poor lighting or a low lighting situation, it will look flashier and brighter in that situation just by absorbing the small amount of light that exists. Not even dark rooms, but just, you know, like not great display lighting. You know, they're not set up that way. They're set up to be like shops, you know? Searching for things I can use a light puck with. That's awesome. That's one of my favorite things is seeing how people use the light puck. Oh, this is an old towel. What do you think I was doing with that? Dirt paths. Grass. I know, you're normally doing some kind of food thing. Alright, so on here, you know, I don't want... I kind of want to glaze some of this down because we're really rough, right? I love the contrast. But what this blue will do is just kind of give it an overall unification by doing almost all of it. It's actually really fun, okay? So we're going to... Almost like if you've looked up oil painting on minis in YouTube where it's like you're taking away paint, but we're going to do it really quickly with just our acrylic watered down. So we're going to kind of pick an area. I thin this with a little water, but I'm just going to put it... I actually want a decent amount of coverage. And then we'll rinse the brush, and on our highest highlight, sponge it off. See that? Sponge it off. Sponge it off. And if there's a part that has too much white or a weird spot or I want more dark, I'll just pool it. And then it's going to look way darker than the white. I don't think I want quite that much there, so again, you can always sponge some of it off. Now we have all this variation, so let's do the other side. I got a little bit on the other side. It's still wet. Sponge it off. You see that? Bam! Highlight. But we have this interesting bit down here now. That has some. I took a little too much of it off. You see that? So this is glazing. Like glazing, I feel like some people... My friend was talking about like, okay, I think I'm going to try glazing. It's like, don't let it intimidate you. All it is just... Like... You can be flexible with it. As long as it's diluted, it has a little working time, you can use your brush like a sponge and move the paint around while it's wet. So see it, this top here, I kind of got heavy and it was all white on both sides. Just tap it one side. See that? Usually on the bits like that, I'll just kind of do a big old wash, sponge off a quick highlight, and then I'll do that on the little side weapons too. But yeah, basically, if you can imagine, like a lot of we've all done washes, right? The difference between a glaze and a wash is only in the application and the amount of paint. So on the little bottom little detail of the weapon, I'm doing basically a wash where I just douse the thing and sponge a bit off. Now, the one thing to be careful of is, like, if you've heard of the coffee staining, that is still a thing where, like, even with contrast paint or whatever, you know, if you let it dry for too long, it will kind of peel like a coffee stain at the edges. I've never really run into that as long as you're working fast. Don't get hung up. Just before it's dry, you can continue. So, let me make sure So for the glazing, it's just a small amount of paint and a small amount of water. So I have a pretty good brush full, but not a lot. You don't want like a blob. And I'll even put it all over this thing. Rinse the brush, dab it off. You don't want it sopping. You just want it moist. So put some of that where you need it to be. This blade is a little weird as far as my application of the white, but we'll make it work. Oh, okay. I'm misreading my map, that's why. It's a different edge, so here we go. Can even dab it off with fingers. If there's a lot of dark in that spot left behind, I'll just bridge it like that. And here on the end, full wash application. Bam, whole thing has got it. I'll give it a tap to get rid of some of it for a highlight. That's it. It's the whole deal. And again, nothing is pencil precision like this. It's just the angles. So to get this edge, I'm just angling perpendicular to the surface. What? So here, even on this one where I skipped a step entirely, I'll just go extra heavy on this scabbard. Because now we're doing double duty variation on this. Same thing, sponge it off. Especially on this detail, I'm less worried about, you know, specificity, so I'm just gonna get a little bit of variation, call it good. Call it good. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, this is fun. It really starts to come together quickly, which is nice. And also keep in mind for my speed too is I've painted like 80 of these these Stormcast models in one form or another, you know. This didn't get hardly any white or teal on the back. I'm probably just gonna leave it because it's on the back side. So it's things like that that also just decrease the mental hangups for me and increase the momentum. Alright. Those weapons are done. So, as far as like the models themselves, oh, this does have some fur. So the first little hero that had fur in this army, I just did an impromptu. Whatever like white blues I had, I just did like a gray. You know, bluish gray. But for the most part on these, it's usually just everything else that remains gets purple. Just a purple base coat and a single highlight. Because now we're kind of all that's left mostly is like the boring stuff, you know. It's the weapon handles, the belts. Capes are cool, but we put so much flash and work into the other parts that let's keep them simple. If I did go back and adjust one thing on this army, probably be a couple more cape highlights maybe. But for what I get out of the time spent, I'm so far perfectly happy with how these turned out. Obviously now we're being a little more careful just to stay within the lines and not hit you know, the stuff we've spent time on. But I'm not being overly careful, honestly, just paying enough attention to, again, keep up momentum and hopefully be pretty neat. But also, like normally, in most cases, if I get a spot of purple or even the previous blue on the arm or something, quick moist brush, rinsed off, usually can sponge it off with plenty of time to spare even. So, no disasters have ever happened in this army, really. On the tabletop, they have, but not on the paint desk. When I was first doing the scheme, I was tempted. I was like, what if I'll just leave it at the purple base coat. I was like, you gotta do at least one highlight. Don't go overboard on the efficiency and the speed. You want to like be able to see what the detail is somewhat. And then what's fun too about the blue base coat is like on the deepest shadow, like back here, I'll just leave that blue. So that's why I base coat everything blue. What I do sometimes leave just purple is these little side scabbard handles, side weapon handles. But any cool little thing like this, I'll just use the purple for it. Oh, that guy's got some fur as well. Yeah, I have this diluted somewhat so it will like flow enough to get over large areas. But I kind of want to avoid doing a full second pass. Sometimes I will if I over thin it. You know, I need some opacity. But so far this is looking pretty good. And even if some blue does show, I think that looks kind of cool. There's like a little vibration when it dries. You kind of see the blue underneath. You know, I don't mind that. Usually. So I try to avoid... I really want this step to be fast. Oh, it's coming when you're away? Something to look forward to when you get back. You'll see I don't even have a fully opaque layer of the blue on here because I really want that to be fast because it gets completely covered and it's probably the most boring part. This is why I wanted it done before I got here with you all. But yeah, just keep up the momentum. There's even some yellow showing, which purple straight over yellow would be kind of a nightmare, but even just that one not even fully opaque layer of blue, I mean, look how it supports that purple perfectly fine, right? If there's a really rough patch, I'll just do a quick second purple pass. Like, not even letting it dry, honestly. Just like, alright, get a little thick with the purple on that part and call it done. Anytime there's a little headpiece, I do this color on it too. Sometimes, stuff like this, there's a little more precision needed. I like to avoid the precision. What I would suggest here, again, points of contact. And also, don't be afraid to move this thing. I mean, especially if this would be on a paint handle. Your hands will cramp up if you hold them like I do here, but, move the model in such a way where your hand is in the most comfortable and controlled position. If you like your hands like X, don't move your hand and hold the model like this because you've been looking at it that way the whole time. Move the model for your optimal hand position. Don't move your hands for a random model position, Move the model to your hands' comfort, not your hands to the model's comfort. It's plastic. Alright, Frog, thanks for hanging out. And for chatting with me. Have a good night. We're almost done here anyway. And this stuff here too is why I wanted to make sure to do a purple highlight as well, because the text symbology on there is sculpted in, so we got to be able to see that cool stuff. A really quick pass with a highlight will make that appear. Alright. So I have on the palette like that heavy white and this teal. A little bit left. Let me see if I can get like something usable. You know what, I'm probably gonna go with... I normally have a darker blue on the palette from that blue step. I'm trying to just mix up a fur color here from something quick. Normally it's something on the palette already. This isn't really a dry brush. It's just, it is, it's similar because it's like I'm getting a lot of the paint off the brush, but I still want enough paint on there that I'm just kind of tapping. I'm not like doing that dry brush feather dusting or like scrub action at all. But it is like just a small enough amount of paint that the texture will just grab the paint off the brush with just little taps. I'm running out of this mix, so now it's getting closer to a true dry brush. It's because I'm running out of paint to have on the brush. And I do normally do just like a quick extra pass, just jam some more white in the mix just to get a semi gradient. For a highlight. Just because it does look a little bland, it's just like the dark blue with barely a mid. So this doesn't take long, it's such a small detail, so I normally just do it quick. Even if I tell myself, do you really need to do that? It's like, well, it's in your heart. Sometimes you just gotta do it. These are very close to done. The purple will get one highlight, and the clouds would get a bunch of crap glued to it with a quick dry brush or airbrush spritz. But that's pretty much how the final steps go, minus that highlight. But if you saw the finished ones from the beginning where I pulled them out of the case, it's a pretty minimal highlight. Thank you. Oh, you doing a custom parquet? That'll be awesome. I think I saw a test of that maybe on the Discord. I like this blade a lot. It turned out cool. Oh, okay. I hear that. Sometimes if you stare at something too long, sometimes the best thing to do is just walk away. So you come back and you'll notice different things or not notice what you thought you noticed before, which means it's probably fine. Alright. Let's wrap this thing up. Next week, I don't have anything in the calendar, so I imagine we will have the stream as usual. So hopefully I will see you all there. And I can let you know how the tournament went and perhaps how Nate did as well. He plays the elves. He plays like the high elf equivalent of in Sigmar, the Lumineth Realm Lords. But yeah, thank you all for chatting with me, hanging with me. Post what you've got in Artist Alley, or share your minis or something. Tag me if you like. Take a peek. Love to see what you're doing. And we will see you next time. Good night, everybody.